In this video, I'm going to talk about shop-bound magazines. That is a magazine that came out weekly or monthly or whatever, and at the end of a certain time period, like 6 months or a year, it would be bound into a single volume by the shop. We got a lot of these in Australia through the 19th century because the distance was so great, it was very hard to send them out weekly. So more commonly, the bound volumes would be sent out. It'd be kind of a year later than England, but that was fine. You still got them. And you got the whole lot. It meant that you didn't risk missing volumes in the middle because they'd gone astray or the ship had taken on water and they'd been damaged. And I'm going to talk about just one that I've got in my collection that I'm quite proud of, that sort of exemplifies the whole thing. And that is this one, Good Words, 1863. This was actually one of the first ones I ever got. It's a bit tattered. Pretty much all the books here I got in second-hand shops or garage sales. I've got a habit of rescuing books if I find them. Even at the edge of the rubbish tip, I feel the need to save them. So I've got a lot of books in very poor condition, but honestly to me it's the contents that are important. Some of them contain works that probably don't exist anywhere else, maybe for good reason, maybe because they're not very interesting or well written, but all the same, that was effort and thought from that time period, and I feel like it deserves at least to be digitised and preserved before the physical form actually disintegrates. I do try to look after them very carefully so that the damage doesn't increase, but that's why this one has this kind of tattering around the binding. I don't actually handle them very often. I'm handling them for these videos. Normally, I actually have them closed off. I keep them in the dark, and I've just been taking that away to do my videos in here. But that out of the way, this is Good Words 1863, and magazines like this contain a number of contributions from different people, some of whom have become quite famous today, such as Charles Dickens. He put out his work in magazines like this. I actually have something by Charles Dickens in one of my magazines, but just at the moment I don't remember which one it is, and their indexes are very, very hard to read, very small print. I kind of like this one because to me it's a really good size. Like, it's not too big, it's not too small, it's very compact for what it is. And it's quite sturdy still. And although it's got a somewhat religious name, and there certainly is a fair bit of religious content in here, there are some just general stories that they had. Every month they had the serialised story to keep people interested, and they are not always religious at all. This one also has illustrations. Most of them did have illustrations. I shall try very carefully to show an illustration, which for me that gives a really nice glimpse into the time period. It was an illustration of the time for people of the time. These books can be a sort of who's who of Victorian authorship. For instance, this story is The Widow's Mite by Anthony Trollope. When I first bought this book, I wasn't really so aware of the authors. I should have been probably. I was about 20, but I just wasn't that interested. I was kind of more interested in the Jane Austen sort of stuff. And it's only now that I come back to this that I have a look at the start at the indexes and realise how many famous people actually contributed to this particular volume. I'll put a screenshot of the index. It's certainly got its spotting and its damage here, but I think it should be clear enough. So just on the first page we've got Sarah Tytler. That was the pen name of Henrietta Keddy, who apparently wrote 91 books. Also on this page we have Martyn Ware's Temptation by the author of East Lynne. I met her in literature as Mrs. Henrywood. Got several books by Mrs. Henrywood. She's better known these days as Ellen Wood. So here on the second page, in the middle column of the poetry section, there's a poem called In the June Twilight by the author of John Halifax Gentleman. John Halifax Gentleman was written by Dinah, Craik, but it became a TV show. Many older people would know that show. It's actually before my time too, but it was well known. And I don't really have anything more to say about it, just that I really enjoyed reading this. It's this little clue into not only life in those times, but what people were supposed to think, because it's fairly dogmatic in places. The message is very heavy. And because the sponsorship was religious, it had to have enough religious content to keep the subscriptions coming in. The thing about books like this is you never really know what you're going to get when you buy them. Sometimes you get absolute gems in them like this. There's a couple of others I've got that have fantastic stories by authors who I don't think ever actually became famous. Maybe in time I'll do some long-form reading vlogs of those too. I've got a whole heap of these. I chose this one because it's sort of a medium-sized one and it is a bit more sturdy than some that I have. My earliest is from, I don't recall, I think it might be 1726. It's a very elderly 2 volumes, and that is a family magazine, mostly with a religious bent, but with a couple of interesting stories of travel. I think my most recent would be around the 1950s. I'm pretty sure they'd still be being put out today, but I just haven't really found any more recent ones. And that's really all I want to say about this, because I'm going to keep this short. Also, you'll notice that I'm going through a bit of an antiquarian book phase at the moment, getting out my old stuff that I don't look at terribly often anymore. That's something that BookTube has done for me. It's just got me looking at what I've got. Sometime soon I'll move into the more recent books when I feel like I've re-explored these ones. That's all I wanted to say about this. I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching.